definitely know things are going downhill when Canadians in this country are fearful of stepping into their own neighborhoods. And we see this constantly with the increase of crime, the increase of drug overdoses. We see this constantly with the just demise of the generality of America. Our economics are tanking, that we are not just entering recession, we're in a depression. We're in a depression. And that's not me saying that. That's economists have even pointed this out, that, you could say this a while back that it was a depression, but now we're, or a recession, but now we're in a depression. When you have high unemployment, when you have 85,000 people in Ontario, just Ontario alone, 85,000 that are homeless. 85,000. That's enough of a small city in Ontario that are sleeping out in the streets. That number keeps increasing. You know that things are going to get worse. You know things are going to fall apart. That's what's happening right now. Canada's falling apart. This is the empire collapsing. If you read about Roman history, you know about empires collapsing, going from the Macedonians to ancient societies prior to it. All empires end and collapse in this way. And Mark Carney, who came in to fix the problems, the problems that the liberal political party initialized, turned out he was a farce. It was a farce. He was a stooge for the WEF that turned this country into its vassal state. And that was clearly pointed out by the book he wrote. The book he wrote, Values. He wrote exactly how he was going to turn this country upside down and make it into a dystopia. Currently happening right now. So this is coming because this article came out from the National Post, and it's alarming. Canadians increasingly frightened in their own neighborhoods, a poll says. Angus Reid survey finds that just 17% feel safe walking alone after dark, down substantially from a decade ago. I wonder what happened in that decade. I think there was this guy, a guy elected in, that we found out was part of the Young Globals initiative from people like Klaus Schwab, and then he said he penetrated this guy's cabinet, and that was kind of the takeover, the demise of this country. It'll come to me. I'll figure it out. But yeah, a decade ago. Seems familiar. Seems right. Canadians are increasingly concerned about rising crime in their communities, according to a new Angus Reid Institute poll. New data from Angus Reid says Shashi Curl, president of the Institute, shows that 3 in 5, 62% Canadians believe crime has been rising in their communities over the last 5 years. That's a lot more than number of Canadians who say they have been no change, 24%, or a decrease at 5%. The new perception is matched by empirical data from Statistics Canada, which shows a rise in both its crime severity index and violent crime severity index since 2020. One key metric reveals growing discomfort. In 2015, Angus Reid asked Canadians if they felt safe walking alone after dark in their neighborhood, finding 1 in 3 strongly agreed they felt safe and half agreed. This question was put forward again in 2022 and 2025. The proportion who felt safe had dropped from 32% in 2015 to 23% in 2022 and down to 17% in 2025. And I would argue that most people in Canada don't even feel safe when there's daylight. Like, being in the dark is kind of understandable. But there's a lot of people that fear just going out in broad daylight because of the demise of the country. And sadly, as embarrassing as to admit it, I feel like one of those people. Because where I am, going to the downtown core is just nightmarish. You see the demise. You see just the complete deterioration of our society, of the people of Canada. You see people that are overdosing in the streets. The last time I walked through the main street of the downtown section here. Going through that, I saw 3 people overdosed. 3 people in different locations as I was walking down the main street, dying of overdose. There was a man that got pulled down a stretcher at a nearby tavern who was bloody in the face. And there was just garbage and deterioration. And another time that I was walking around there, this was a while back, there was a little girl, I could probably maybe 5 or 6 years old, very young, screaming at the top of her lungs and running to her parents, because I guess their family was walking by that street on the sidewalk, screaming that some man from the alleyway approached her. So, understandably, I could see why people don't feel safe and people don't want to get out. And there's also new alarming statistics that because of the staggering economy, because of statistics like this, that no one wants to go out, they don't feel, happy, content in this country. Restaurants are collapsing. Restaurants are collapsing because no one can afford to go out, and also they don't feel safe to go out. Just the continued demise of Canada. And that was written down by Mark Carney in his little publication called Values. It was exactly a manifesto of how he was going to govern this country. He wasn't going to save anything. He wasn't going to deal with the problems. He was going to create more problems to turn this into a dystopia and hand it right off to the WEF. He was furthering the actions of Justin Trudeau. In 2014, Canadians were more likely to perceive stable crime rates 40% than increasing ones at 30%. The perception that crime is rising close to home tends to be strongest among conservatives, according to the Angus Reid's data. Those who voted CPC in 2025 believe that there is an increase in the crime in the community at a rate of 30 points or higher than those who voted for Mark Carney Liberals at 51%. A majority, 58%, of past Bloc voters agree crime is increasing. Few Canadians, 5%, say that crime has been decreasing where they live. So think of that. So conservatives know that crime is increasing. Liberals can see crime is increasing. Bloc Québécois can see crime is increasing. But only a tiny 5%. A teeny tiny 5%. I bet you that 5% is the shit lives in the gated communities of Toronto. I bet you that's the case. Or they live in the penthouse that's, secured by the beaches. I bet that's it. Only 5%. Only 5% feel like crime is decreasing. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. How can you say we live in a proper country when every person from every political domination, they all agree that crime is increasing, except for a mere 5%. Many minor crimes have been on the downward trajectory in recent years, but one key offense has bucked this trend: shoplifting. That's what they say. Shoplifting incidents are at the highest mark in decades after a drop during the 2020 COVID-19 outbreak. Each subsequent year has featured more shoplifting, increased financial pressures, mental health, and addiction issues. Lower police staffing levels and other aspects are credited for this, as well as a focus on theft among organized crime, says Curl. Report after report during the past few years have noted the increase in shoplifting and abuse faced by the business community. Asked about their current job in the past 6 months, 2 in 5 have dealt with shoplifting incidents many times, while 1/4 have said that they happened once or twice. 4 in 5 have faced verbal abuse, while 43% have endured physical threats. Among the most widespread crimes, or at least the attempted crimes, are fraud and identity theft. More than 4 in 5 Canadians have said they've been targeted of an online or phone scam over the past 2 decades. or sorry, after the past 2 years. My mistake. For 30% of the population, this has resulted in the loss of information or money. Notably, according to the Angus Reid data, Canadians lost more than $638 million in reported fraud cases in 2024, although only 5 to 10% of such cases are thought to be reported to authorities. Well, let's be honest. If we report it to, the authorities like RCMP or the CRA, they're also charged with fraud. So, how are they going to help? They're part of the problem as well. The CRA is engaged in numerous accounts of fraud. Numerous accounts. In fact, right now, they're being held accountable for the fraudulence of the CERP money that they illegally took. And now they have to pay back certain people. They have to do a full investigation. So, trusting them to deal with fraudulence when they're convicted of fraudulence themselves. No wonder why lack of trust is rising among people. Why people are on edge. The prevalence of finishing and fraud attempts is astonishing, with more than 4 in 5 Canadians saying that they have been subject of an attempt over the past 2 years. As they believe telephone or internet-based fraud and identity thefts attempts have been increasing or decreasing in their communities, a majority of Canadians in each case has become more frequent. While more than 80% have been contacted, 30% said they had money or personal information taken from them by a scam. These proportions tend to be higher with age. People 60 years of age and older are almost twice as likely as 18 to 29-year-olds to have been a victim. Some of it may be attributed to unfamiliarity with emerging fraud strategies. And I just saw a thing too. And this is alarming, especially with AI coming in, that now because of voice recognition and being able to extract people's voices to mimic people or to create videos or whatnot that look like a certain person, that's adding to the fraud schemes. So someone could take this voice right now. Someone could take my voice right now, transfer it, make a copy of that, and again, sound like me, but it's not me calling you or not contacting from me. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Especially with an older generation that is not familiar with AI. I mean, I'm not even really that familiar with AI. I'm in my 30s. Imagine someone older than me in that demographic, in the senior demographic, being scanned by this, by artificial intelligence, because they don't know how it functions. They're not easily pointed out as someone like me or others. Across income level, there is little variance, according to Angus Reid. Canadians of all financial backgrounds are targets between 27 and 35% within all income ranges and have been victimized by fraud of this sort. Just skipping down a bit here. Crime trends in both the rate of police reported violent crime in the United States was 334 incidents per 100,000 in 2023, which remains significantly higher than the rate in Canada at 252. However, the gap between the US and Canada has shrunk over the past 25 years. So I wanted to highlight that because all the people that have been screaming about Trump and screaming about America and saying, well, it's worse over there, you're wrong. In fact, we're pretty equal. In fact, it's almost like simultaneously, both our countries are being screwed. It's almost like we've been played. We've been duped. So all the people that were on the elbows upside that cheered on Mark Carney to think that he's going to solve your problems, you got duped. The same way people got duped with Donald Trump. The same way people got duped with Barack Obama. Do you see the trend that's happening? Do you see why people should not be trusting the feds? People should not be trusting with the electoral state that we're in. The fact that the demise of this country is intentional. It's not because of incompetency. It's because they planned this out. They have planned this out for many years. Here we are in 2026. We're close to 2030. You know what that means. And here is what's coming. Here's what's coming. It's the end of the era. It's the end of the empire. They're purposely doing this. And what we have to do as citizens is recognize these signs. Do not comply. Do not be complicit with the evil that's going on. And we need to gather together to strategize a way to fight back. Non-violently, of course. Crime trends in both countries have fluctuated in recent years, but Canadians feel are much more likely to perceive crime as rising, while Americans are still far likely to say crime is increasing than decreasing in their communities, though many 37% say there's no change, blah, blah, blah. Online survey. Okay, so many people are afraid to leave their homes, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I want to show this because while we were covering the story about the 40,000 Torontonians that were blocking the street to protest Iran, this was going on at the same time. The same time. And guess what got more coverage? Guess what got more attention? Guess what people were more concerned about? The protest for Iran. Because that was a psyop. We need to get more people riled up for regime change in another country that has nothing to do with us, instead of engaging in this. So this guy, Marion Rene, or maybe it's a lady, not judging, says, here we go again, downtown Toronto. Do I have to see more? I think a picture is worth a zillion words. They haven't caught this POS. He stabbed 2 innocent people. Oh, sorry, allegedly. Yes, because they're saying allegedly he stabbed 2 people, even though it's caught on camera. 2 blocks from me, and he's out there running around somewhere. So this was going on while people were protesting about how the Iranian government was treating people in Iran. Just think about that. Think about that. This is why I told you about the irony of this. That's why I thought it was literally suspicious that everyone's so up in arms about Iran and Ukraine, and now you're realizing it's a psyop. They got to keep you in this matrix, get you angry at something else, or angry at each other, or keep the left versus right at each other's throats while this continues on. While they purposely demise your country. They're purposely doing this. It's not incompetency. How about this one? This is from last year, I do believe, or 2024. My mistake, 2024. But this is the kind of average day that happens a lot in Canada. So Melissa Rogers says, holy crap, vehicles are not only being stolen out of driveways, people are being carjacked on the spot at gunpoint. This is in Toronto, Canada. Remember this? Remember Toronto had a spew of carjackings. People are going door to door, stealing cars. And what did the Toronto police say? They told you to give up the keys. They didn't tell you to, they told you not to fight back. Because, you know, if you fight back against a criminal, you're going to be the one charged. And they told people to give up the keys. Give the keys to the criminals because that's apparently the best option. And now it's gone so bad that they're carjacking on the street in daylight. In daylight. So here, this is a video from 2 years ago. So spring of 2024. This is what happened. This is what happens most often in Toronto. On top of the homicides, on top of all the gang violence, you name it, it happens.
Prank.
But it was no joke. The carjackers wanted the couple's 2-month-old Rolls-Royce SUV, similar to this one, valued at about $700,000.
He said, give me the key.
Mandy was buckled into the passenger seat.
He goes, give me your ring.
Her husband was outside the car already. Maddie says she didn't comply at first, arguing
the guy
back
running.
instead for 3, maybe 4 minutes.
Get out of my car with your phony fake gun, right? And he said, it's not a fake gun. So he pulled out the bullets, showed it to me, and at that point I realized, well, maybe this is more serious than I thought.
The carjackers were driving a Range Rover. One of them jumped into the Rolls Royce and drove away, with Maddie still in the front seat, until she was tossed out. You could see her on the ground in the dashcam video.
I was very fortunate. You know what, when they threw me a Halloween prank.
But it was no joke. The carjackers.
So that happened in the streets of Toronto. Now, hey, I guess the silver lining, maybe those criminals, maybe those thugs, you know, can now look to ICE. Because, you know, you're lunging at a person's car. They're masked up. They're wearing all black. I mean, it's like two of the same, isn't it? It's amazing. The criminals look exactly like the law enforcement that's protecting us. That happens so frequently. And Toronto police, their negligence. The OPP, their negligence. The York Regional Police, their negligence. Because they're basically being told by the politicians, they're being told to let this happen. Tell the people to just give them the keys, you know, give them the fobs, because we can't access so-and-so. And if you actually self-defend or protect your family or your home, you're the one that's going to become a criminal. So they're letting these crimes happen intentionally. They're letting this happen intentionally because they want the destruction of Canada to occur. They want this to happen to turn this into a complete dystopian nightmare. That at some point, we're going to have this, you know, police state. This police state that everyone's going to be subjugated to a digital ID. Everyone's going to become a barcode that you're going to feel like living in Auschwitz. That's what all this is about. They have to first self-destruct all the, you know, measures that Canada has brought to itself all these years. They have to self-destruct the country before they can rebuild into this nightmarish Orwellian dystopia. And it's already proven by Mark Carney's book. It's already been documented by all the people at the WEF. That's why I keep reminding people that Donald Trump's not going to take your sovereignty. Donald Trump's not going to invade Canada because Canada's already been taken over. This country does not have sovereignty. Doesn't have sovereignty because it was taken away as soon as Klaus Schwab admitted that he penetrated our cabinets. The minute he said he took over the government, that's when you should have just saw that Canada was gone. And this is what is happening because we don't have a country, because a country actually has proper representation. A country actually has civilians and they have proper government that responds to the civilians. We don't have any of that. We're living in a vessel state of the WEF. And finally, to lead to this is newer statistics. This is from Polling Canada, where they asked people, they said, Canada's heading down a road that will leave a mess for future generations. Do you agree, disagree, or are you neutral about this? Look at this, 61%. 61%. More than half the entire population of this country is saying the country is heading down a road that will leave a mess for future generations. Considering a lot of these future generations are unemployed, they're the massive unemployment rate right now, more staggering than the Great Depression. They're also the ones that are dealing with this just dilemma and the fact that they're going to have to cost the burden of all the mistakes of prior years. This is insanity. This is how you destroy a country. This is how you destroy a society. This is how you epitomize against each other. Because once people become desperate and they get frustrated, they get angered, they get tired, and they get told to start blaming the left or start blaming the right, and that they're at each other's throats. That's how you destroy a country. Called despotism. And that's what leads to fascism. Hence why they want to do this. Because they got to make people desperate and angered and frustrated so that they could sell the idea of authoritarian fascism. Just like all the incoming migrants that they claim that they can't document, they can't look at, because Mark Weissman said it's a waste of time. They're doing this intentionally. They're doing it intentionally that they could sell you the idea of, well, hey, we could solve the migrant issue. Everyone just has to have a digital ID. Everyone just has to be a barcode. Can't have identities. We can't have personalities. We can't have individual civil liberties and rights. You know, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that are part of this country that people died and fought for. Can't have that anymore. Can't have that anymore. So we got to make the country even worse to sell you the worst, terrible scenarios you can imagine. And that's why Canadians are fearful of leaving their own house in their own neighborhoods. And while they say that, well, it's only in the dark, I would argue it's in broad daylight. It's in broad daylight. You don't know how many times I have talked to people, I've heard from people, or you even see on social media, people making posts about, hey, I just went to run errands and I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I'm witnessing this. I can't believe that, you know, a carjacking is happening right in front of me in Toronto. I can't believe it. I can't believe all this is happening. Well, it is. You better believe it. And you better understand why it's happening. And you better get as angry as I am and maybe come together to actually fix the problem. Because it's definitely not going to come from politicians. Not going to come from Parliament. It's going to come from us. We need to make them fear us. And the best way to make them fear us is when we come together in unison, come together and organize as Canadians to fight back this country, non-violently, of course.